Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for spending time with me again today. I am very excited today to be chatting with Gerda Nicholson. Gerda, please can you tell us a little bit more about your work?
Melanie, it's so nice to meet you. I remember you from Oriental Plaza days when you were printing T-shirts
Wow,
way back. Yes,
that's a
I mean
long
that was
time.
it's a long time ago. And yeah, that's where you go to is the plaza. Whatever trade you're in, the fabrics were there.
Yes.
Anyway, thank you very much for this opportunity. I appreciate it. And I think my story begins with I grew up with a grandmother and a mother who were weavers.
Okay.
So there was always thread and color and history of textile and carpets and tapestries, whatever, doing the rounds. And must have had an impact somewhere. I went to Pretoria University, did BA drama, and reached a stage where, yes, we did many productions, wonderful. And I wanted the costume side and history of costume. And then I thought, no, the antiquity is not in South Africa.
Mm.
I applied for a bursary to do my master's degree in Belgium. And there, as a youngster, you come out of the apartheid isolation and you realize um, how limited, naive we were,
Mm.
and the possibilities, and the freedom, and the antiquity. So that was a massive eye opener.
Mm.
To actually be a student there for a year, I had to go and sell myself to do apprenticeships because it wasn't only academic, also practical. And there, that was a good exercise to go to a designer or a prof or a somebody and say, "May I please be an apprentice in the next production?" The next, so that was wonderful.
Mm.
After a year, I wanted to stay in Europe, and yeah, the season changed. So the theaters, it was summer, and then I landed a job in Amsterdam, and that was in with a design studio. So I shifted into fashion. It was a serious wake-up call.
Mm.
Your pattern drafting is different, your tempo is different, you cutting garments that are, I mean, it's all on a roll, and Friday is client day. So that rhythm, it was fantastic.
Mm.
I came um, so my master's degree was about history of costume, history of textile in the West. I kept to the West, otherwise too wide, and um, rotated around color.
Mm.
So I always appreciate the old dye stuff, the old cochineals, and the indigos and all that, and had the privilege to actually see that in Peru
Mm.
and to to discover that in Africa.
Mm.
And I started out with my own fashion business when I came back. Um, then got married and the blessing of children, and as you know, life happens.
Mm.
I think the thread was always textile,
Mm.
um, fibers, and I had the opportunity to work with a porcelain doll maker.
Mm.
She would make perfect porcelain work with exquisite heads. She would only cast 10 of them, and that series then over. And this 60 centimeter doll would then land with me, and I had to dress her.
Mm.
And I took on the challenge to say, I'm going to dress her historically correct.
Okay.
So it's 13th century Italian. no elastic, no synthetics, no. So that was the challenge, and there weren't two faces the same.
Mm.
And I remember as a youngster, you so impressed with Romeo and Juliet, you know, the Franco Zeffirelli film. Or lately, you're so impressed with the costumes of Game of Thrones,
Mm.
the glorious embroideries and
Mm.
details.
Mm.
So I was play that, and the kids were small, and they played with me in the studio, making their dolls, and it was happy chaos. Once they were in primary school, I got the opportunity to teach for gifted children
Mm.
at Schmegenbeck College. This was in Johannesburg, in Rosebank. The lady who organized that was Eva Biebuk.
Mm.
She herself was busy with her master's or doctorate in maths. And her approach was, if you can create a course running for a term, so 12 classes, if you can create that, send out your blurb and have a class of 12, you're on. So it was wonderful.
Okay.
There was a lady who did Egyptology. There was a man, electrical engineer. He was building circuits with the kids. We had a ball because number one, you're working with a learner who wants to be there
Yes.
and who needs to be stimulated. You must keep them busy.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it becomes chaos. So that was a good time. That
Mm.
was a wonderful time. Um, Also, in my earlier married life, we lived in America for a while. I
Mm.
didn't have a green card. We sat in Cleveland, Ohio, with a very fierce winter. I
Mm.
mean, 9 months of snow and sleet and being closed in. And there was a wonderful lady who said, "Come with me to a quilting bee."
Mm.
And I discovered quilting
Mm.
and patchwork and the traditional, and the Americans are so big at that. And it was in the time when the quilt came off the bed and onto the wall.
Mm.
So that transition of craft to art.
Mm.
And I saw pieces that I thought, is this what you can do with it?
Mm.
Let it run.
Mm.
I did fall back onto dyeing my fabrics
Mm.
once I was back in South Africa. So you buy a good quality calico and you can do your own shades. I've moved on from that. I mean, you inspired me to take a piece of fabric, if it's dull, 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 throw it in the dyeing pot and see what comes out of it. And often color is my starting point
Mm.
to a design.
Mm.
If the color runs, I know it's running. This
Mm.
is fine. And I moved to Somerset West about, I don't know how many years ago, and it's a totally different tempo. I'm out of, oh, in Joburg, I had my own business in wedding dresses.
Mm.
That's when the kids were about high school. Um, Very challenging,
Mm.
but my approach was very costumey.
Mm.
So I would design, storyboard. You know, it was the time before the franchises.
Yes.
So that killed it. And
Okay.
sorry, does that land on the editor's floor?
Not at all. It's great insight about how the industry changes.
It has, and there were people in Joburg, old Joburg then, who imported fabrics. I
Mm.
remember a guy from Bridal Wholesalers, he imported from Barcelona
Mm.
that you thought you could minimum buy 4 meters and you can do exquisite work with it.
Mm.
So I also grew into traveling wardrobes. It's something that grew out of making for the mother of the bride.
Mm.
You click with some of them, and there's a request. Listen, I need to travel, da da da.
Mm.
Make a mix and match, get the exquisite fabrics that work. So that was a challenge. But to come back to now, um, textile surfaced again,
Mm.
and I started working with smaller pieces of textile on linen
Mm.
and then have it stretched over a frame. So a lot of it is machine work,
Mm.
handwork, and yeah, lately it's more mixed media. If I see semi-precious stones or something that I can work onto it, I do that. That
Mm.
is fun.
Mm.
Then you start developing series.
Mm.
And actually, the first one was I did animals, more impressions of animals, and they landed at game lodges.
Mm. Mm.
Um, I was fortunate to sell to Swallow Foundation. They're in the Green Kalahari.
Mm.
And I thought instinctively, what's there? I've never been in the Green Kalahari.
Mm.
And I discovered it's the wild dog and then they're magnificent birds. So I went for that, and those designs are still hanging there somewhere. I remember a very nearly abstract impression of little lilac-eared wax bills,
Mm.
all made in fabrics, and a Scots owl and things like that. And I discovered it's loosening up.
Mm.
You know, you're not doing an animal anymore.
Mm.
And then I made a rhino for a farm in the Karoo.
Mm.
And out of that, I made a second rhino. And for some reason, the animal fell apart. You
Mm.
know, there are sort of shields in a rhino.
Mm.
And I thought, leave it there. And instinctively, um, I thought, it's the species that's threatened, it's falling apart,
Mm.
it is so poached, it's so threatened.
Mm.
So I designed this idea of um, a rhino, and instinctively, as a fibre person, you want to sew it up.
Mm.
So I took a red cord, bold cord,
Mm.
sewed it up, and I actually had the cheek to take this piece to WWF here in Cape Town.
Yes.
And she said to me, yes, it's high time they have an art auction again as a fundraising.
Okay.
And bless her, the piece hung there for a while, and then it was auctioned in Joburg.
Yes.
And it was, of course, a big fundraiser. And there I realized I'm working very small,
Mm.
physically, in size.
Mm.
So I got that, I can open up, go big,
Yes.
bigger
Yes.
canvas, bigger, more color, more movement. And that's actually where I am lately. I'm not doing animals anymore.
Okay.
I'm um, often challenged, a curator would have a theme for an exhibition. So you start working with a theme,
Mm.
and the privilege to then exhibit in a group that is all on the same theme. You see the
Mm.
different interpretations of that. That's super fun.
Mm. Mm.
I have to admit, um, how shall I say it? This lockdown caught
Mm.
me. First, I thought, oh, a block of time, no interruption. You can do it. Now you can dive in. This is awesome. You always want a block of uninterrupted time,
Mm.
but it became too uninterrupted.
Okay.
And I lost it all. It was, I don't know, it was just a horrible time. I mean, the
Okay.
first stage, what was it, 5?
Yes.
So that was not good. Only recently I experience going on hikes again,
Mm.
seeing the fynbos flowers, seeing
Mm.
the mountains, looking far, and not,
Mm.
no
Mm.
offense, not on a screen.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
So you can get into that cycle of inspiration again.
Mm. Mm.
And actually it's opening up very nicely.
Mm.
So the art festivals are opening up, and um, galleries, we all feel not in the same boat. We're not in the same boat. It's the same virus, but we're all in different boats, I feel.
Yes. Yes.
So
Absolutely.
there's tremendous talent in our country.
Mm,
And it'll come, the opportunities. That's what we need.
mm, mm,
So can I quickly do my commercial pitch? Um, Muka in the V&A,
mm,
the big art museum, it's not a commercial museum,
mm,
has this initiative of Cape Town and vicinity. You can enter your work in different categories.
mm,
I think it's to bring the feet back to the waterfront, to get the feet back into the museum. And oh my word, what a thrill to have your work hang there.
yes.
It's amazing.
Yes.
So that opportunity is happening. Then Suid-Oosterfees has moved to Wellington,
Mm,
and that's opening up.
mm,
It's a wonderful venue. It's at the Breitenbach Center.
mm,
And then Stellenbosch is opening up, and Hermanus Fine Arts is also opening up.
mm,
So the whole festival is broken up in sections,
mm,
which actually makes sense.
mm,
So, yeah, this is exciting stuff.
mm.
That's where
Absolutely.
I'm lately.
I love it. I absolutely love it. I love how you have reinvented yourself again and again and again.
Oh,
It's
yes.
it's magical. It's magical.
I think that's the big advantage of um, being female. You have different phases in your life,
Mm,
the baby phase, the school phase, it's a blessing. I mean, huge blessing.
mm,
But you have to travel and sit in a place somewhere in isolation, winter time. Oh, and there's quilting, and it
mm,
jumps at you. You always um, find textile.
mm, mm.
There's
So,
a
so
mhm.
which do you prefer? Do you prefer making art or making commercial clothing for sale?
No, lately art.
Okay.
The fabrics available lately is very limited.
Mm,
Um, I I used to love having clients and deadlines and it going out. That you outgrow that.
mm,
You outgrow the client based stuff.
mm, mm,
And now it's easier to say, well, I'm on this roll with whatever color or shape.
mm,
It's freer, it's more challenging in a way.
mm,
You have to sort of pull focus and say, well, is it is it is it true?
mm,
And not to go, don't commercialize us. You know what I mean?
mm, mm. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, what processes with fabric do you enjoy the most, and why?
Ooh, Melanie.
Or are you always just looking for that next frontier, that next thing to try and mush up with the last thing that you were doing?
I think you say it well. What happens is when you look at color,
Mm,
you often want to explore what color does next to each other,
mm,
how it resonates.
mm,
So during lockdown, just as color studies, and it's an easy process, I started cutting up paper,
mm,
making paper collage work
mm,
as an inspiration to just keep doing something. And that is also a nice starting point for a new approach, not
mm,
just cutting up fabrics,
mm,
because you do cut up and reconstruct. So you often come up against a construction sequence, problem solving.
mm,
How do I fit this together? Is it really working?
mm,
You know,
mm,
you can, and where's that point where you step away, it's done.
Mm.
Now don't overwork it.
Mm.
That, yeah.
Mm. Yes, there definitely is an art to knowing when that point is.
Yes.
Mm.
Yeah. At
And
the moment, textile art is very exciting, fiber art.
yes.
There are so many dimensions to it, so many media.
And do you feel that it's finally moved out of this is women's work in the home to this is an art form that people need to take seriously?
Perhaps not in this country yet,
Okay.
but we're close. And if you think of installation work lately,
Mm.
you get a mix of rubber, plastic, textile. It's more mixed media, but there's a lot of textile.
Mm.
Um, it's so wonderful to see that happening.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
On an inspirational note, I one day went to the fossil park on the west coast,
Mm.
and I was so impressed with the installation work there and with the whole exhibition, the timeline, how they put it together, and you walk on a boardwalk above digs,
Mm.
active digs. So that is lately a theme that I'm exploring.
Okay.
There's the Cradle of Mankind, and then there's the Dinosaur Park in Golden Gate.
Mm.
Um, all that has such inspiration.
Mm.
That's interesting. And often when I hike in the Karoo, I mean, you do develop fossil eyes, don't you?
Mm. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Start looking at all the rocks differently.
yes, you do.
And have you been to the Fossil Museum in New Bethesda?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Inspiring, hey?
So my uncle was actually James Kitching.
Oh, really?
Yes, yes. That museum is named after him.
Oh,
So the
I
fossil
wonder
thing
if he,
is
yeah, I
quite
wonder if
strong in
he
our
knew my
family.
older brother. Yeah, yeah. It's we have a very fossil-rich country.
Mm, mm,
Yeah,
mm.
yeah.
I love the way you kind of do progressions. You've done the animals, now you're doing the fossils. You've worked small, then you moved large. I'm loving the way you kind of keep just reinventing and expanding. I think it's wonderful.
Thank you. Yeah, keep it alive, hey?
Mm, mm.
I think
Eh,
it's. Mhm.
no, I'm listening.
I think it kills you if you do more of the same.
Mm, mm, absolutely.
Somewhere you want to see growth or
Mm,
um, a huge flop and think, okay, great, I know what went wrong. I can take it from there now.
mm,
But then the flops are often that inner critical voice.
mm,
So I made an actual cardboard cutout, painted it, and when I'm in my studio, out with you. Don't stand outside. I
mm,
don't want that. It's a it's a mindset for myself to say critical voice out.
mm,
My studio cat is welcome, but not that inner voice that's always questioning, always eroding. You know what I mean?
mm, mm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I find it very interesting, your take on that self-criticism.
Yeah, don't you find it's always under the surface? It's always there. And I think two things happen. You start comparing with
Mm,
other artists, and comparison steals all the joy and it destroys it.
mm,
And then the other thing happens, you're not free.
mm.
And it's only you that can free yourself up and say, I like that color. I'm working in that color again.
Yes,
So, you
yes,
know,
yes, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I
I
am at a point. Mhm.
yes, I'm listening.
I am at a point where I don't buy more fabric.
Okay.
I don't like the print, as I said, I put it through the dye pot or stitch over it or slash it or whatever technique, cut through it, burn it, whatever, see what comes out of it. But I've got enough fabric. I've
Okay.
always kept fabric.
Now you're using up your stash.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you know where it's going to go after you die? Have you made arrangements for it in your will?
Not yet. I doubt my kids will be interested in my. I better use it up. Right?
You better use it up. Yes, I had
Yeah.
a very meaningful interaction with Beatrix Bosch some years ago. It would be about probably 10 or 15 years ago. I met her, and she was getting to the end of her life, and she was very concerned that she had more leather in her stash than she'd ever be able to use up. And she actually gifted me a very beautiful piece of ostrich leather that I made into a very functional item that I wore a lot. And I was quite delighted the other day. I met a guy at a braai who has ended up with some of her stash, and he's making the most beautiful products from them. And
Oh,
I just got goosebumps when I heard his story, because I realized that somehow her stash has made it into the hands of people who are
yeah.
appreciating it for what it was, and are using it up in a meaningful way.
Yeah, it mustn't go lost.
Yes,
No, no.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Also, all the fabrics, the old school, beautifully hand embroidered tablecloths and
Mm,
all that. It must be put in the right hands.
yes,
Use it up, recycle, reinvent, make something out of it.
yes, yes,
We
yes,
can't chuck that. You don't chuck fabric.
yes. Especially because a lot of the new stuff that's coming out is of such poor quality.
Yes, it's shocking, huh?
Mm, mm,
And it takes so much water and energy to produce it.
mm, mm.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on the South African clothing industry and textile industries, where we're at in this point in history?
I don't have my finger on the pulse anymore. I
Okay,
used to,
okay.
and I used to know how to set up for a fashion show, and you're in touch with what's going out there,
Mm,
but not anymore. No, I stepped right out of them. They are young designers. Oh, watch them.
mm, mm, mm.
I do know that Pretoria University, where I studied, there is a BSc course, and it's textile design
Yes.
and chemistry and history of costume, history of textile, and you come out equipped into textile. It's a wonderful course.
Mm,
So yeah, if I were a youngster now, I would say thank you, Dad. Not a BA, I'd go for that course.
okay.
There's
Okay.
a future textile. The
Yes.
design. In Holland is a textile museum.
Mm,
It's in Tilburg,
mm,
and that is the old textile mills that landed up empty. Um, it's converted into a working museum.
okay.
So I went there often and did a course or two there.
Mm,
They offer courses, and it's a working museum.
mm,
You get involved. And at that time, it was digital printing, digital embroidery design,
mm,
um, laser cut, weaving, and also weaving in different media that you think, how clever.
mm, mm,
Then you go back in history and there's nothing is new.
mm, mm, mm.
If you in Versailles, you see chairbacks and it's woven in horsehair and it
Yes.
has this wonderful gloss. And it always comes up and it disappears, comes up and it disappears in history.
Mm,
So the new textile and energy, um, creation in wearing a garment with solar panels or whatever, optic fiber stuff.
Mm,
That is exciting.
mm, mm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you think that digital prints will ever kind of take over completely from your more analog processes like screen printing and lino printing?
No, I think there's always that special place for
Mm,
handwork,
mm,
the original.
mm,
Yeah.
mm. Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you think that as well? There must be. Yeah.
I love analog so much. You will never convince me that digital is superior to lino printing. I love that, just that direct process in the
Yes.
fingertips. There's
Yes.
there's something about it. It's a meditation when you're doing it.
Yes. And those blue hands. We all wore black nails and blue hands for so long. There's a certain connection.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. Gerda, it's been an absolute delight chatting with you today. Thank you so much for connecting with me in this meaningful way. I'm really certain that your story is going to inspire other fiber artists out there when they watch this episode.
Thank you very much, Melanie.
Have a
You must
beautiful.
keep well, and I admire for you how you connect people. You're
Thank you.
connecting energy. You're building up a big thing.
Thank you. Thank you. I
Well,
appreciate it. I'm enjoying it more than anybody else. I feel so privileged to be hearing the stories of these great textile artists who I've admired for such a long time. You know,
mm.
it's lovely to finally speak to all of you and hear your stories. It's really inspiring.
Are you missing making so much yardage? I mean, you were full out
No,
printing.
I'm not
Well, you
missing
also,
mass production.
yeah, that's then. That's over.
You know, I used to make 100 garments a week for years on end. It's enough. It's enough. It's enough. Now I'm really enjoying making pieces for myself that I can wear, that I make a gazillion stitches on, and I take as long as I want to with them, and they to me from me.
Yes.
You know, gifts to me from me, because I've spent so much time churning out at speed for other people that just to sit down in one place and make something for myself slowly um, is very meaningful.
You're inspiring me. I have my favorites, my old favorites. I should also just, do that again. Make a
Yes,
garment. You'd nearly overinvest, but it's going to be such a joy to wear it.
yes, yes. I have over invested in a few pieces lately, and I love wearing them. I'm like, this is for me, not for somebody else. So
For
um,
you.
and I'm also, there's like almost no overinvestment, because now, having invested so many stitches in that thing, I now have to make it last forever.
Yes,
So if it needs mending, I mend it. I add to
yes,
it. So I just keep
yes.
adding to these things. So
I'll come visit you. I'd love to.
I think so. I think so. I think we'd have a great time. I think we'd have a great time. Anyway, thank you so much for this window into your world. It's been a great privilege to speak to you today.
Thank you, Melanie. Keep well.
You too.